Right, so I added, this is part 2, I added pagination, so you can go previous and next, and then you can go 1 and 2, and you should also be able to search, so, and the pagination should show up, right? So we just have one page there. Alright, so I'm just going to show you how we go through that. The DB model has everything we need. So we have a page limit. So we set the page limit. We have a current page, page index, and total pages. This is where we get the request from the server. So we have current page. We're looking for the parameter get page, and we set in that to the current page. We also have a function here called run pagination. This just telling us to run the pagination, and then we have two functions, current page and get current page index. These set the values depending on what the current page is. All right, so this telling us where to start from. As the variable name says, this get current page -1 multiplied by this page limit, which is what we set on top here. All right, so just pay attention to that. So that gives us the index that to start from, because it's a limit offset query that we'll be using. All right, so the rest of it is in the actual event API, where I extend the DB model and we have the functions that we need. So the main function is fetch, and then we just call all our other functions, and we use this .fetch all, which is what we did here, to get those results. So we have get all and search records, which is the two primary functions. So I'm just going to show you how we do that. So of course I run pagination here, and then the rest of this is pretty straightforward, except that we get in the total records, and then we get in the total pages based on the total records using the seal function, and then we call in this set total pages pagination pages function. Remember, this is this function here in DB model, so we just set in this value so that we could always access it later. And this is the most important part here, where we set a limit offset query. So we have the SQL that we pass in using the fetch all, and then we just add in a limit, and we add in the page index, which is the first, and this page limit. All right, so that is basically all that we have to do. Again, page index depends on the current page. And what does the current page depend on? The current page depends on the page that we have, that we passing in from the query. All right, so that is what you need to pay attention to. And then in get all records, we call this fetch all, and in search records we do the same. So on the view side of things, we have our object to deal with pagination. All we need is pages on current. That's literally all we need, and is a pagination object, and we just set in it according to this. So we have some page in HTML, which you can see here. So previous, 1, 2, and next. So we can look at that, and then we see how we have it here. So this is the number 1, or the numbers. So we're doing a loop here. We have a loop here. So v4n and pagination pages. All right. So that's a loop, and we just looping through from 1, and we're going through how many numbers based on the pages that we have, and we set in n as being the number, and we call in the get events function with the page number. And the others is just page buttons, so back and forward, we passing in the function, so either back or forward. So let's just look at that again. Pay attention to the pagination current. If it's current, we set in the class as active, whereas in these cases we have different what is called it, conditions, right? So the class will be disabled if the pagination current is less than or equal to 1, and the class would also be disabled if the pagination current is greater than or equal to the pagination pages, which is the total amount of pages. So this is for the next, and this is for previous. As you can see, those buttons change. So right now it's active, and I go to 1, it's right now it's inactive, and I go to 2, this one is inactive, and this one is active. So in get events, right, we pass in any page. So we're saying if we have page, if we don't have page, we set it equal to 1, otherwise we call in the page, right? So we add get events and add in the attribute page, and we put in the page number that we have there. So we will get that within our DB model, and we will act accordingly, and then we just return in the data. So this is actually pretty important. So we have to return the data accordingly. So how we use in JSON response is that we send in the data, which is our data, add all the events, and then we have current and total, which we get in from our class, which we set earlier. So we have model current page and model total pages, and once we get in those values, all we can do now is set them. So specifically for get events, we can see we get the events here, and then we set in this page current, and then we set in this pagination pages, which is the total amount of pages. We're doing the same thing for search events. All right, getting the page current and the pages. Finally, for page buttons, which are these buttons here, all we're doing is, well, based on the function, so whether it's back, we say if back is equal to 1, we just set it to 1, otherwise if back, and then we pass in the number because it's actually it's showing up as a string for some reason, so we're just making sure it's an int, and then we passing it and we minusing it 1 if it's back, or we add in 1 if it's forward based on the condition, and then we just call in this get events. Again, what we should actually do here is check to make sure if is search. So if it's search, we would actually be calling the search events, all right, and not the get events, but you could always do that.